A man may lose kingdoms not by weakness of arms, but by the looseness of his tongue. Words are weapons, but unlike the sword, they often cut their master first. In this lesson, I will show you the fatal situations where your mouth betrays you, where one sentence can undo years of strategy, loyalty, or power, and if you do not learn to master silence, others will master you. In every court, in every gathering of men, the tongue is the spy that betrays its master. Most men believe they are safe when they speak, yet their words scatter like seeds into the soil of suspicion, envy, and ambition. What is uttered in jest may return as an accusation. What is confessed in weakness may be sharpened into a dagger. Those who would rule must first chain their tongue with the discipline of silence. To speak less is to give the enemy less material with which to strike. To speak carelessly is to invite your own ruin. Tonight, we examine the precise moments where the mouth becomes the most treacherous enemy of power. Power is not only won on the battlefield. It is preserved or destroyed by what escapes your lips afterward. Consider this: when a man wins a victory, his first impulse is to proclaim it. He wishes the world to know his strength, his brilliance, his triumph. But what is pride to him becomes provocation to others. Every word of self-praise is a blade cutting into envy. Every declaration of conquest creates resentment in those who feel diminished by your success. And envy, once stirred, is more dangerous than open hostility. Look back at Rome. When Julius Caesar returned from Gaul, laden with victories, his boasts and parades dazzled the people. But his own words turned senators into enemies. They did not hear celebration. They heard a man declaring himself above them, a man whose victories overshadowed their own reputations. And what followed? Daggers in the Senate. A man brought down not by an army, but by the consequences of his tongue. Do you see the pattern? The moment you proclaim yourself too loudly, you awaken forces you cannot control. The silent victor is feared. The boasting victor is hated. Why? Because men can endure defeat more easily than they can endure the memory of another's triumph being rubbed in their faces. Your tongue does what your sword cannot. It turns potential allies into rivals and rivals into conspirators. Think also of the workplace you inhabit today. The colleague who announces every small success, who trumpets his achievements in meetings. What becomes of him? He draws attention, yes, but he also draws enemies. He paints himself as a target for envy. Those around him quietly sharpen their knives, waiting for the moment his pride leaves him exposed. A wise strategist does not shout victory. He lets silence magnify it. Why? Because silence invites speculation, and speculation is more powerful than confirmation. If you claim brilliance, men will doubt you. If you remain silent, men will imagine brilliance greater than what you actually possess. Their imagination becomes your ally. Consider a psychological truth. The human mind resents being reminded of inferiority. The louder you celebrate yourself, the more you force others to confront their own weakness. And nothing fuels hostility like wounded pride. It is better, then, to appear modest, to cloak triumph in understatement. Let others whisper of your greatness instead of hearing it from your own mouth. A reputation born in whispers is more enduring than one shouted from rooftops. But do not mistake modesty for honesty. There is strategy in silence. When you downplay your victories, you disarm envy. Your rivals relax, believing you weaker than you are. Reveal themselves prematurely, thinking you no threat. Meanwhile, your real strength grows unnoticed. Is this not the essence of power? To strike without warning, to expand without resistance, to conceal strength until it is too late for others to oppose you. Look at how the cunning leaders of history behaved. The Medici often concealed their influence beneath a mask of humility, letting others believe they ruled Florence by accident of fortune rather than calculation. Their enemies, deceived by their quietness, underestimated them until they found themselves ensnared. And you, how often have you betrayed yourself by boasting? How often have you turned a friend into an enemy by reminding him unintentionally that you are above him? Think carefully, because every victory you boast of becomes a record others keep against you. Every word of self-praise is stored, to be used when the time comes to cut you down. It is wiser to let your deeds speak in silence. For silence cannot be quoted, silence cannot be twisted, and silence, unlike words, does not feed envy. So, when you achieve something, resist the urge to shout. Let others discover it slowly, as if they uncovered it themselves. What is discovered feels truer than what is announced, and what is whispered about you spreads further than what you declare. Ask yourself, would you rather be the man known for speaking of his victories, or the man others whisper about in awe, uncertain of the full extent of his power? The first dies envied, the second lives feared. Remember, victory itself is never enough. It must be managed. Boasting squanders it, silence multiplies it. Now consider this. If boasting of victory is dangerous, what about speaking in anger, when the tongue reveals your very weaknesses and desires? That, my friend, is where your betrayal becomes fatal. Anger is a poison disguised as truth. Few realize that the tongue, in its moment of rage, becomes a traitor of the mind. When you speak in anger, you do not speak to others. You speak to yourself, revealing the corners of your ambition, your fear, and your weakness that were meant to remain hidden. Ask yourself, how often has a heated word created more harm than any enemy could muster? Consider Caesar on the Ides of March. Brutus, once a friend, struck the fatal blow, but it was Caesar's own temper and arrogance that made him predictable. Even in private councils, Caesar's irritation betrayed his impatience, his sense of invincibility, his blind trust in those around him. Anger whispers to your adversaries exactly where to strike. Look closer. Every raised voice, every sharp rebuke, every harsh sentence is a signal to observers. It is a roadmap of your vulnerabilities, and make no mistake, humans are merciless in exploiting such signs. The Renaissance courts were filled with men who learned this lesson cruelly. A prince enraged at a minor insult might lash out at a subordinate, only to find that the court had recorded his reaction. Those who appear controlled are obeyed. Those who reveal fury are monitored. Every word of rage is a declaration. I am weak where I feel slighted. Consider your own life. How often have you spoken in anger, believing you were asserting authority, only to watch respect retreat? How often have friends, colleagues, or rivals used your words as ammunition, twisting your frustration into justification for opposition? Anger does not strengthen your position, it exposes it. There is a subtle psychology here, one that the clever understand instinctively. Anger short-circuits reason. It removes the filter between thought and speech. What you would carefully guard in calm moments slips out unchecked when the heat rises. Secrets spill, strategies are revealed. Intentions, previously hidden, are now laid bare. Look at the leaders who mastered the art of measured response. Lorenzo de' Medici, when confronted with insults or conspiracies, often smiled or said nothing. His silence provoked uncertainty. His enemies acted prematurely. His power grew precisely because he did not reveal the emotions that his rivals hoped to exploit. Compare that to the man who yells at perceived slights. He energizes his enemies, alerts his rivals, and isolates himself from allies who fear volatility. Even in intimate settings, anger is betrayal. A husband who lashes out, a friend who snaps, a colleague who scolds, they all provide a mirror of their true impulses. And what is revealed in anger is never flattering. It is raw. It is manipulable. It is dangerous. Ask yourself, do you control your anger, or does it control you? Do you speak from strategy or from instinct? Power is seized in the quiet moments of decision, not in the heat of emotion. The man who can appear calm while plotting, the one who masks irritation with composure, achieves more in silence than the loudest adversary in the room. Consider the battlefield. A general enraged by a minor setback shouts orders recklessly. His soldiers see uncertainty in his voice, hesitation in his commands. The enemy senses opportunity. Discipline collapses. The battle is lost, not because of force, but because anger was allowed to dictate action. Now imagine this in the world of subtle influence. The court, the council, the office, the marketplace. Every word spoken in anger is a footprint leading straight to your vulnerabilities. Every raised voice signals a weakness. Every harsh sentence becomes a story others will recount, waiting for the moment to turn it against you. And yet, few men restrain themselves. Few understand that the greatest victory is achieved without revealing the depth of your desire or the sharpness of your will. Control the tongue in anger, and you control perception itself. Lose control, and you hand your enemies the keys to dismantle your influence. So, when the next insult comes, when provocation presses, ask yourself, will you speak in rage and betray yourself? Or remain silent, letting others misjudge your power while you plot quietly? Because silence in anger is more than restraint. It is strategy, it is armor, and it is the precursor to domination. But mastery over anger is only one step. What of the words you whisper in confidence? Those shared with the ones you trust? When your tongue betrays secrets, even allies become instruments of your undoing. Trust is the currency of power. Yet few understand its true cost. When you share a secret with another, do you control it, or does it begin to control you? Every confidence whispered carries a risk invisible to the careless mind. Ask yourself, how often have the closest allies become the sharpest threats? History is littered with men who perished not by open war, but by words they thought safe in friendly ears. Consider the fate of King Richard Tinway of England. He trusted men who seemed loyal, who nodded at court and offered counsel in private chambers. Yet those very confidences, plans, fears, vulnerabilities, were used to orchestrate his downfall. The court turned against him, not because he lacked armies, because he had entrusted others with the map to his undoing. Humans are not loyal to virtue. They are loyal to opportunity. And your words, once spoken, become tools in the hands of those seeking advantage. Even in the small theaters of daily life, the principle holds. How often have friends repeated what you believed was private? How often have colleagues leveraged information you shared in confidence to advance themselves? You imagine trust protects you. In truth, it exposes you. Psychology teaches us that information is power. When you reveal a strategy, a desire, or a weakness, you hand over control. Your confidant may remain faithful for a time, but circumstances change. The moment it serves them to use what you shared, loyalty becomes irrelevant. Consider Machiavellian courts of old. A prince who spoke too freely, even to trusted ministers, often found himself encircled by betrayal. The Medici, for example, understood this well. They cultivated an image of benevolence and discretion, yet they listened more than they spoke. They allowed secrets to flow toward them while never revealing their own intentions. By keeping their counsel private, they manipulated events from the shadows. Those who thought themselves allies became unwitting pawns. Do you see the danger? Even a single careless word can reverberate far beyond your immediate circle. The moment you trust a tongue, you are gambling. And unlike dice, the outcome is never fair. There is also a subtle psychology at work. When someone hears a secret, it no longer belongs to you. It takes on a life of its own. The confidant may alter it, embellish it, or weaponize it. What was a harmless admission in your mind can become a dagger in theirs. Even the seemingly innocuous sharing of ambition carries risk. Do you reveal a plan for promotion? Do you speak of personal goals or desires? Every revelation provides leverage. Every confidence offers a handle by which others may manipulate you. Look closer. The human mind seeks advantage relentlessly. Allies, as much as enemies, are opportunists at heart. They assess information not for loyalty, but for utility, and they will act the moment it serves them, even if it requires betrayal. What then is the strategy? Never speak unless necessary. Never reveal intent unless the gain outweighs the risk. The prudent man listens more than he speaks. He cultivates trust but never relies upon it. He knows that the safest secrets are those he keeps unspoken. Even in intimate relationships, this principle holds. A friend or confidant who knows your vulnerabilities can exploit them when temptation arises. A lover who learns your ambitions may, without malice, act in ways that serve their own desires rather than yours. Every word is a potential weapon, every secret a future liability. Ask yourself, do you control the world around you, or does the world control your revelations? Do you speak because you must, or because you are unwise? The man who guards his words, even with those he trusts, moves unseen, strikes unexpectedly, and preserves his power. But beware, silence is not weakness. It is armor, it is patience, it is strategy, and mastery over your tongue in the company of allies is only one step. Next, we explore the danger of over-explaining your actions. How words meant to clarify can reveal far more than you intend, and how justification becomes the architect of your own vulnerability. Every word you speak shapes how others perceive you. But there is a danger far greater than silence. It is the danger of explanation. Why do men over-explain? Pride, fear, a desire to control perception. Whatever the reason, the effect is the same exposure. Every justification, every clarification, every lengthy defense is a mirror reflecting doubt, guilt, or weakness. Consider the rulers of Florence, who learned through bitter experience that explanations are traps. A prince who justifies a decision to a council risks revealing motives that others can exploit. The more you speak, the more you give away, and what was meant to command respect instead invites scrutiny. The council does not listen to clarity. It listens for vulnerability, and those who sense it act swiftly. Think of Richard III of England. He tried to justify his claim to the throne, speaking endlessly to allies and subjects alike. Every explanation he offered was dissected, questioned, and turned against him. The more he defended, the less secure he became. The crown he sought to solidify slipped further from his grasp, not because of battle, but because of words poorly measured. Ask yourself, do you justify actions out of necessity or insecurity? Do you believe others require your reasoning, or do you fear their judgment? When you explain, you reveal the landscape of your mind, and every revealed corner can be mapped, manipulated, or attacked. There is a subtle psychology to this. Human beings are keen observers of contradiction. They measure your words against your deeds, your hesitation against your certainty. When your explanations are lengthy, convoluted, or repetitive, you signal that your actions are fragile. Doubt is infectious, and doubt in power is fatal. Even in ordinary life, the principle is constant. A manager who over-explains a decision encourages subordinates to question it. A friend who justifies every choice invites critique. A lover who insists on rationalizing behavior plants seeds of suspicion. What was intended to inspire trust becomes an invitation for exploitation. Observe how the cunning operate differently. They act decisively, and when asked, respond with restraint. A brief word, a measured phrase, a simple acknowledgement. These are their tools. They do not defend their moves unnecessarily, for to do so is to provide ammunition. Silence and brevity magnify authority. Excessive explanation diminishes it. Consider Napoleon. He rarely explained his strategy to subordinates beyond what was necessary. To do so would have revealed his intentions, allowed them to question his choices, or worse, to undermine him. His genius lay not only in his battlefield maneuvers, but in controlling what others knew, and controlling the perception of those moves. Now, examine the mechanism of manipulation inherent in explanation. When you justify yourself, you do more than speak. You frame the narrative. But framing is double-edged. The moment you frame, you reveal the gaps you perceive in perception. You betray your own awareness of potential criticism. And those who observe are quick to exploit the very acknowledgement of insecurity. Even minor explanations carry risk. A casual excuse, a casual clarification, can seed doubt, question loyalty, or provoke envy. You may believe you are managing perception. In reality, you are inviting intrusion. Your adversaries are already listening, already assessing the cracks in your rhetoric. Ask yourself, do you speak to clarify or to conceal uncertainty? Every word spoken to justify yourself is a gift to those who would undermine you. Every explanation extends the reach of scrutiny, and the man who fears judgment is already at the mercy of those he seeks to impress. So, learn to act decisively and speak sparingly. Trust that power, once exercised, requires no defense. The brief word or deliberate silence is more persuasive than pages of rationalization. Authority is preserved through confidence, not explanation. And remember this: explaining is often rooted in fear. Fear is the herald of betrayal. Those who fear judgment are the first to be undermined, even by those who appear loyal. But fear of exposure is only one danger. What of the careless insults, the whispered mockery, the unguarded contempt that slips from the mouth in private moments? When your words betray disdain, even subtly, enemies are created in silence. Mockery is a weapon, but it is a double-edged one. The tongue that belittles may wound another, but it often cuts the hand that wields it. Ask yourself, when you make a joke at someone's expense, do you gain respect or sow resentment? The human mind does not forget humiliation. It records every slight, every sneer, every subtle laugh at one's expense. And those wounds, though invisible, fester. They turn allies into adversaries. They transform indifference into vigilance. They breed revenge. Consider the courts of France. Nobles who flaunted superiority through ridicule found themselves isolated, their influence diminished, and eventually their power stolen. The slightest insult, the faintest mockery, was remembered. The court is patient. It plots quietly, and the one who scorns others in jest often becomes the subject of whispered conspiracies. Even among equals, the principle is constant. A colleague belittled in a meeting may appear compliant, but he will not forget. He will wait for opportunity. He will strike when your guard is down. The seeds of retaliation are planted in the fertile soil of wounded pride. Psychology teaches that human beings interpret mockery as a threat. Even if delivered with humor, it signals dominance, judgment, and superiority. Those who feel diminished are alert. They observe. They calculate. And what is calculated may eventually be executed. Consider the behavior of rulers who understood this danger. Elizabeth I of England rarely mocked her courtiers openly. She wielded authority with intelligence and subtlety. Even when she expressed displeasure, it was measured, contained, almost imperceptible. Her words could sting, but they were never careless. And as a result, those around her feared and respected her, not plotted against her in secret. Contrast this with figures who could not restrain their wit. Henry VI, for example, often belittled advisors, jested at their failures, and mocked their counsel. The court learned to fear his humor, but fear is not loyalty. Eventually, the consequences of carelessness in speech manifested in betrayal, conspiracies, and instability within his own circle. Those who laughed with him one day whispered against him the next. Now, consider your own life. How often have you joked at another's expense, believing the remark harmless? How often have you smiled while sowing discontent? The mind does not differentiate between jest and malice. It simply records the hierarchy imposed, the insult delivered, the humiliation endured. There is also a subtle psychological trap. When you mock, you reveal the lens through which you view the world. You reveal your own need to assert dominance. You reveal insecurities hidden beneath the guise of humor. And observant minds, both friend and foe, perceive this immediately. Your tongue betrays not only others, but yourself. Even small acts of belittlement in private are dangerous. A whispered joke, a subtle derision, a momentary smirk, they are observed, remembered, and interpreted, and those moments become currency in the hands of the perceptive. Soon, even those you considered loyal are weighing your weaknesses against their own ambitions. Ask yourself, do you seek to assert power, or do you invite its erosion? Do you understand that humiliation is rarely contained? Every insult generates an echo, rippling beyond the immediate moment, into the hearts and minds of those who may wish you harm. The clever man restrains the impulse to mock. He understands that influence is preserved not by belittling others, but by controlling perception. He maintains authority with respect, subtlety, and discretion. He knows that silence, or measured words, is more powerful than the sharpest jest. And remember this, the man who belittles others may gain momentary amusement, fleeting satisfaction, or the illusion of superiority. But the consequences are patient, relentless, and often fatal. The moment you laugh at another's expense, you mark yourself as vulnerable. And when you believe your power secure, those who once laughed quietly with you may plot quietly against you. So, if mockery is a weapon, wield it with precision or not at all. Because a careless word can create enemies faster than any sword. But the danger does not end with insult. Even restraint is tested when fear or desire surfaces. When the tongue speaks of your own weaknesses in moments of confidence, betrayal, or intimacy, fear is the shadow that follows every man of ambition. But to confess it aloud is to illuminate the very path that leads to your undoing. When you speak of doubt, even subtly, you hand your adversaries a key to manipulate, dominate, and destroy. Ask yourself, do others ever see your uncertainty? Do they hear the tremor in your voice, the hesitation in your explanation, the confession of worry? If they do you think it passes unnoticed? No, it becomes a blueprint for action. Consider the fall of Tsar Nicholas C. He confided anxieties and doubts to his inner circle, believing loyalty would protect him. But every confession of fear was noted, whispered about, and ultimately used to undermine his authority. When the revolution arrived, the very words meant to seek counsel became the chains that bound him. Power is never forgiving of revealed vulnerability. Even in less dramatic arenas, the principle holds. How often have you admitted uncertainty to a friend, a colleague, or an ally? Perhaps you sought advice, or perhaps you believed transparency would secure loyalty. Instead, your words are remembered, reshaped, and exploited. Human minds are opportunistic, and those who perceive hesitation in another measure it against their own ambitions. There is a subtle psychology at work. Fear signals risk, doubt signals weakness, and weakness is never ignored. The moment you voice it, you no longer command your fate. You give others permission to act in ways that serve them, not you. Look back at history. Julius Caesar faced conspiracy not merely because of ambition, but because of moments when he revealed impatience, irritation, or misjudgment. Even minor admissions of doubt became evidence to those plotting against him. Your tongue, in moments of vulnerability, is more dangerous than 1,000 enemies. What you seek to protect, trust, loyalty, understanding, often becomes the instrument of betrayal. Even in ordinary life, this manifests. A manager who confesses uncertainty emboldens competitors. A politician who hints at hesitation invites opposition. A friend who reveals fear can be quietly undermined. Words meant to strengthen relationships often create leverage for exploitation. The clever observer understands the value of silence. He allows the world to assume his certainty. Even when uncertainty gnaws within, he speaks only with control, with deliberation. The perception of confidence is more influential than confidence itself. Why? Because humans respond to appearances more readily than reality. Consider psychological insight. Confession of fear is a signal of dependency. It tells others you require support, guidance, or protection. Those who hear it, even with kindness, instinctively measure the opportunity to influence, manipulate, or control. Your vulnerability becomes a tool for their gain, and once tools are in others' hands, you may find yourself powerless to retrieve them. History offers countless examples. Lorenzo de' Medici rarely revealed hesitation, even when faced with conspiracies. He masked doubt with calm, precision, and subtle humor. His enemies were forced to act without certainty, while he preserved the initiative. Contrast this with leaders who confessed anxieties freely. They were often overthrown, undermined, or publicly humiliated. Ask yourself, do you speak because you must, or because you are unaware of the danger? Every admission of fear is a map. Every hint of doubt is a signal to those seeking advantage. And in the theater of power, advantage is everything. Mastery of silence, especially regarding fear, is not cowardice. It is strategy. It is armor. It is control over perception. The man who reveals doubt loses the initiative. The man who conceals it controls the narrative. And remember this: fear, when admitted, is contagious. Even allies may begin to question, to hesitate, to act in self-interest rather than loyalty. Your weakness becomes the foundation for others' ambition. You become, in their eyes, less a leader and more a target. So, restrain your tongue. Speak with intention. And remember, confidence perceived is power retained, while doubt expressed is influence surrendered. But even silence cannot protect the unwary from temptation. For when desire, ambition, greed, or curiosity enters the mind, the tongue can betray what fear itself could not reveal. Approval is a subtle poison. Few recognize it, yet it dictates more actions than force, wealth, or strategy. When you speak to seek validation, you surrender control. Every word becomes a reflection not of power, but of dependence. Ask yourself, how often have you spoken to impress rather than to command? How often have you tailored your words to the expectations of others, hoping to earn their admiration, their applause, their loyalty? In those moments, are you leading? Or are you being led? History is replete with men undone by the hunger for approval. Consider Nero, whose court flattered him endlessly. He craved their praise, sought their adoration, and spoke to elicit approval at every turn. What followed was chaos. Decisions were made not for Rome, but for applause. And when the applause faded, the empire teetered, and he was left with nothing but echoes of adulation turned to contempt. The psychology behind this is subtle yet relentless. When you seek approval, you reveal your priorities. You disclose what motivates you, what terrifies you, what you depend upon. And those who hear it, even in casual conversation, take note. They measure your neediness, they calculate leverage, they exploit. Even among equals, the principle holds. The employee who constantly seeks affirmation from a superior signals insecurity. The colleague who peppers conversation with self-praise and subtle hints of worth exposes vulnerability. The friend who explains, justifies, or embellishes to win agreement lays a trap for themselves. Every attempt to secure favor is a signal of reliance, and reliance is weakness in disguise. Consider Elizabeth I. She rarely sought approval outright. She allowed her courtiers to flatter her, yes, but she did not beg their opinion. She spoke with authority, even when uncertain, and cultivated an image of measured control. By denying herself the need for overt validation, she forced others to adapt to her agenda, not the reverse. Influence flowed from her perception of self-assuredness, not from the consent of those around her. Observe the principle in daily life. How often have you spoken to persuade, rather than to command, to impress, rather than to act? Every sentence framed for admiration is a tether to the perceptions of others, and the man who tethers himself is already partially disarmed. There is a subtle interplay between desire and power. Humans instinctively respond to confidence, not to please. When you speak seeking approval, you admit that your confidence is insufficient. You grant your audience control over your actions, over your reputation, over your ambitions. And they will not squander the opportunity. Even minor acts compound. A compliment solicited, a joke delivered to please, a story told to impress. All are small concessions of authority. But small concessions accumulate. Soon, the pattern becomes apparent. Those around you know that influence is obtained not by deeds, but by flattery. And they will adjust accordingly, controlling what they say, when they act, and how they react to manipulate you further. Ask yourself, do you speak because you must, or because you seek consent? Do you shape your words to achieve goals or to ensure admiration? The man who seeks approval becomes predictable. He becomes pliable. He becomes a resource others can manipulate at will. Power demands independence. It thrives in self-assurance, not in the applause of others. The man who restrains the need for approval who acts with conviction regardless of opinion, commands silently and profoundly. Those who chase affirmation are already chasing shadows, shadows that may vanish when opportunity or danger arises. So, resist the temptation to speak for praise. Resist the urge to shape your image with words. Influence is earned through presence, through action, through deliberate control of perception, not through the fleeting approval of the crowd. And remember this, approval is addictive. Once you seek it, it never satisfies. It creates dependence. It weakens the foundation of authority, and it sets the stage for the most dangerous betrayal of all. The betrayal that comes not from enemies, but from those you believed loyal. Next, we will explore how revealing your desires too clearly exposes you to manipulation, and how ambition spoken aloud can become the architect of your downfall. Desire is a fire, but fire revealed is easily extinguished, or turned against you. When you speak openly of your ambitions, your goals, or your cravings, you hand others a blueprint for manipulation. Your tongue, in moments of candor, becomes the architect of your own vulnerability. Ask yourself, how often have you confessed what you want, believing others would support, not exploit, your ambition? History shows that such candor is perilous. Consider César Borgia, a man of audacious vision. He understood that revealing desire invites both aid and treachery. He acted decisively, but spoke sparingly of long-term ambitions. Those who underestimated him paid the price. Those who learned too much, too soon, were neutralized or maneuvered by his own careful orchestration. Desire unguarded becomes a weapon in the hands of the observant. Even in everyday life, this principle persists. The colleague who declares every goal to others invites interference. The friend who shares every aspiration opens the door to judgment, envy, and subtle sabotage. The lover who expresses every craving may find it manipulated, dismissed, or turned into leverage. Your desires, once spoken, are no longer solely yours. They become fodder for those who wish to influence, control, or undermine you. There is a subtle psychology in this. Humans are opportunists. They observe, calculate, and act based on what you reveal. When your ambitions are known, they can be blocked, redirected, or co-opted. Your own words may build a trap that you step into unwittingly. Consider the fate of ambitious courtiers across the Renaissance courts. Those who spoke too freely of their plans were monitored, undermined, or eliminated. Conversely, those who concealed their intentions, acting with subtlety and patience, manipulated events around them while appearing harmless. Power grows in the shadows, not in the open declaration of desire. Even minor disclosures carry risk. Expressing a personal preference, a professional goal, a financial ambition, each becomes information that others may wield. They observe, remember, and act with precision. Your openness, however innocent, signals predictability. And predictability is a weakness to be exploited. Ask yourself when you reveal a goal, who benefits most? Is it you, confident in your vision? Or is it the observer, the rival, the opportunist? Who now knows the path to influence you? Every spoken desire is a potential lever for others to manipulate your choices. The wise understand that restraint is not weakness, it is strategy. They act with intention, keeping their ambitions close to the chest. They allow actions, not words, to signal their power. They cultivate uncertainty, for uncertainty forces others to tread carefully, reveals their intentions, and prevents exploitation of your own. Think of political leaders who mastered concealment. The Medici navigated Florence with discretion, never revealing long-term plans. They allowed opponents to misjudge their intentions while consolidating power quietly. Those who attempted to speak their desires openly, either out of pride or necessity, often became targets before their plans matured. Ambition spoken is ambition sabotaged. Even in intimate relationships, this principle is potent. Revealing desire can elicit support, yes, but it can also provoke manipulation, jealousy, or premature obstruction. A desire voiced is a vulnerability exposed, and vulnerability is a language that others speak fluently, whether you notice it or not. So ask yourself again, do you act to achieve, or do you speak to impress? Do you reveal your ambitions, or do you conceal them, letting results speak while others speculate? The man who masters his words controls perception. The man who reveals his desires too clearly hands control to others. Remember this: every ambition voiced too early is a potential weapon in the hands of the cunning. Every goal spoken aloud is a roadmap others can follow, manipulate, and exploit. And every whispered desire may one day become the chain that binds your freedom. And the danger does not end here. Even the most concealed desire can surface through weakness, anger, or longing. When your tongue betrays what your mind carefully guards, the consequences are swift, subtle, and often irreversible. Power is often invisible. Control is most complete when those around you do not realize it exists. Your tongue, your silence, your measured words. These are tools sharper than any blade. Do you command the room, or does the room command your words? Do you speak to dominate or to appease? Every boast, every confession, every desperate plea for approval can betray you. Every secret shared, every desire revealed, every anger unrestrained becomes a map for others to exploit. The wise understand influence is quiet. It is patient. It moves unseen. It shapes minds without them knowing. Ask yourself, are you master of your words, or a servant to them? If you seek true power, practice restraint, conceal intention, and let actions speak while others guess. The world respects the silent strategist. The world fears the one who acts with precision. Comment your thoughts below. Reveal nothing. Reflect everything. Subscribe for more Machiavellian strategies. Share this video, but let your control remain unseen.